it's Tara,
It's Jen.
and we are here with another episode of Girlfriends Talk Marketing. Today, we are going to be talking specifically about the customer journey and customer user experience, and specifically how businesses have had to adapt based on the pandemic last year and what 2021 will bring for companies. We're really excited about this topic. Obviously, 2020 was a very challenging year, and we want to just shed a little bit of light, very high level, in regards to the changes to the buyer journey and how companies can adapt to continue to drive engagement and drive revenue this year.
So clearly things have changed a lot in how consumers are behaving. Let's talk first, though, Tara, about what that buyer journey is, the consumer journey, and offer some definitions of what we're talking about here today.
Perfect. Yeah. So for those of you that aren't familiar with that terminology, the buyer's journey typically has three stages, and those are typically research. Then once someone has done research, they move into the consideration stage. The consideration stage typically involves analysis of vetting a few different solutions, and then that leads into the decision-making stage. So historically, when we were able to basically when sales teams and executives are able to intersect the buyer's journey usually at the middle or the bottom of the funnel of those processes, they were able to do things like face-to-face meetings or live events or trade shows or in-person sampling opportunities depending on your industry. Obviously, last year changed a lot of that, and the way that folks, consumers specifically, went about figuring out how to solve a problem that they had, realizing they had a problem, because some embark on the buyer's journey not even knowing the problem that they have. They just know that they have a pain point of some sort that needs to get solved, and then moving through the consideration and decision-making process, was the biggest change, were the biggest places that we saw change in the buyer's journey. So that's the traditional buyer's journey. And today we're going to talk about how the digital platform and the need for a digital strategy has really affected consumers' expectations, and how businesses can really adopt to meet those consumer expectations, as well as ultimately do what we need to do best, which is sell more of our products, sell more of our services, and engage with more potential leads to grow our businesses.
So last year, prior to the pandemic, a buyer would identify a problem that they have, something that they need, something that's missing in their life, missing from their business, something that's going wrong. You, right, as the business, may have helped perpetuate that or spark that by something that you wrote on social media or something that you put out in an email. But typically, the buyer is come to understand that they have a problem, and they start to do research. And that this is where things changed, because they would have done the research online a little bit, but they also would have relied heavily on offline research, going to trade shows, walking into stores, depending on if you're B2B or B2C. But then at the very end of the stage, and this is where things really have changed, at the very end, you would have had an opportunity to influence them in person. You would have had a face-to-face meeting with them. You would have sat down with them at that trade show and convinced them to buy from you. And now we don't have those options anymore. So how do you make up for not having that touch point?
So at the beginning of 2020, prior to the pandemic even starting, it was a nice to have, or know you needed some sort of digital strategy. But businesses who relied heavily on in-person transactions or trade shows or outbound methods that were not digital based, they didn't have to have a strategy in place. When everything started to roll out, it became more and more apparent that if you didn't have a tech stack, or your infrastructure wasn't set up for your employees to be virtual, for your consumers and target consumers and customers to engage with you on a virtual platform, your business became very challenging. And
Right. So that
So
tech stack, let's focus just a little bit on that. How would you define a tech stack, and what, going into 2021, does every business need to have?
sure. So tech stacks look different for every industry, and it also plays heavily into what you have in place currently. You want to make sure that you have what we kind of consider the basics are: an email communication platform, a way that you can reach people's inboxes, either your leads, your clients, your employees. How are you communicating? What's your communication strategy for all the different people that you need to communicate with on a regular basis? The next piece is really, we think about the things that our digital strategy last year has evolved to, and that is chat features on websites. So thinking about how to utilize a chat bot on your website. Obviously, you want to think about how your sales team is set up, who's going to own the communication, what does that user experience look like. I often recommend, starting with how you would want to utilize a chat feature. So thinking about, is this going to be manned? Is this going to be mostly AI? Is it going to be a combination of the both? So setting that up. The other thing is booking meetings online. So in addition to just Zoom, the Zoomification of everything, where people are actually holding meetings virtually via Zoom, we also want to take a step back and say, how easy or how hard is it for people to actually book those meetings with you? Are you using something like a Calendly or a HubSpot meetings link? And then the last thing is really forms. So most people just have a straight up, just generic contact us form on your website. Those are historically the least converted on because they're just so very generic. You really want to hone in on a variety of forms on your website. Schedule a meeting, discuss an audit, learn more about this product, set up a trial, set up a demo walkthrough. Obviously the call to action in the form is going to be based on your industry, but you really want to have and give people multiple chances, because there are so many people now coming at such a variety of stages of the buyer's journey and engaging in your website, that you really, now more than ever, need to engage with them at various levels: top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and then even more so now at the decision making process, because people are looking for turnkey, seamless experiences
Yeah.
when purchasing services and products.
So absolutely have different forms on different pages that are tied to that specific page. So
Yeah.
once you get these forms, so now this flips us right into the next stage that you've been talking a lot about, which is the emails and how we're going to engage with the customers. And we've always talked about how important emails are, but even more so now, when that's going to be your primary point of contact with these people. So you've got these lists, you've got these people that you want to reach. How should you be thinking about setting up your email campaigns?
Yep. So segmentation is definitely the key. Personalization is definitely the key. I mean, we've been talking about personalization for the past few years. A lot of platforms offer, global personalized tokens, bare minimum things like first name, company name, things like that, to just make sure that whatever you're communicating, you're not just, blindly going mass market to everybody. But segmenting based on the buyer's journey. So a lot of companies have always invested in kind of top of the funnel content assets. So thinking things like blogging and educational space and white papers and ebooks and trials and things like that, trying to get brand awareness, but
Mhm.
also trying to just enter people into the sales cycle very early on. Where companies have had to do a little bit more work around is on the conversion piece, which is the buyer's, marketing middle of the funnel and buyer's journey of that consideration stage and then that decision making stage. So thinking things like, instead of, I'll use realtors as an example. Open houses, instead of doing in-person open houses, they've had to invest a lot in technology to do virtual open houses. In order for you to sign up for a virtual open house, you've had to give your name, give your email, have your broker contact you. It still very much is following the process how you would originally schedule an in-person open house,
Mhm.
but there has been a new layer of content that has had to go into that strategy in order to have that home sold just as fast. And that's the type of stuff that we're talking about, is that companies have had, and individuals, solo business owners have had to really invest in, okay, what does my, middle of the funnel buying cycle and, decision making, buyer journey content look like?
Right.
So,
One of the things that I've been noticing with the emails is you can send a lot more emails than you have in the past. People
correct.
are not, it's not turning off buyers, it's not turning off consumers because they're on email more, maybe, but they'll get off your list if they don't want to. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're losing
Right.
somebody because they're not on your list, they're not going to be interested anyway. So you don't need to worry about that. So you actually can step up the pace of emails.
Correct. Yeah. Emailing, definitely. I mean, that also goes to, at Inbound last year, one of the sessions that we recapped and talked about was, email best practices. And, one of the presenters there was like, do 2 emails within 48 hours, because our inboxes are so overloaded because of the digital strategy and shift that has had to happen. Stuff just gets lost. And, we're still in a phase of 6 years ago, it was 5, 6 touches, to get engagement. Now we're up to 8, 10, touches, between of email, a voicemail, a phone call, all of those types of things. So,
Sure.
we, as long as you're doing it authentically, and as long as you're providing value and always helping,
Right.
your leads and prospects versus pitch and selling, then, don't be afraid to send that extra communication to try to get that engagement lift.
Always focusing on that value, that is super important to give people. Not just, it's not, they don't care so much about who you are, it's the solution that you have for them. And this flips right into social, which is the third piece of this. So you've got
Yep.
your tech deck, you've got your emails, and now let's talk a little bit more about social and how that has changed. First of all, if you're not on social, you really need to be on social now. And if you are on social, then you need to be looking at how you're using it and what really makes sense. Is it just posting every single day or twice a day? What's going to move the needle on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, you've got to look at your target consumer. I mean, for someone that's in like a life sciences category, you don't need to be posting 3 times a day. That's going to be overkill. If you're in a B2C, selling t-shirts, then sure, you can step up the pace and do a morning meme and then an afternoon meme of a reminder to, get someone their customized t-shirt for their birthday or their anniversary or Valentine's Day or whatever's coming up. But, the most important thing with social is that you're present there and that people can find you. We've been, watching the trajectory of, Messenger. We've been watching chatbots. We've been watching that kind of, you know, message communication back and forth, specifically for companies from a customer service perspective. Most people nowadays, for better or for worse, if they've got a complaint or if they've got an issue and customer service isn't solving it, just take a look at their social channel. Someone's tagging them, complaining about them, sharing to their news network what an unpleasant experience that they've had with this particular company. And thankfully, a lot of companies are monitoring, their social media channels from a customer success point and a customer service point, and speedily rectifying, that disgruntled customer, to show the power of how they do problem solve when people are unhappy with a certain, product or situation or service. But I think it always still goes back to just be on there, be present, be available. If someone messages you, don't take 2 days to message them back. It's, for better or worse, we're in, a somewhat instant gratification type of communication, strategy, but someone should be, monitoring your social channels on a regular basis to make sure that you're using that as a channel for people to connect and communicate.
And I think it's really important to think about that connection and engagement piece of things. This is not an advertisement place. This isn't a place where you should just be talking about yourself and all of the products that you have or how great they are. This is a place where you should be engaging with your customers and talking with them about the things that are of interest to them. They'll figure out and make those connections between you. If you care about your customer and you show that, you're going to build that trust with them that is so important for them when they make that decision on who they're going to buy from.
So we've recapped a lot of kind of like the basics of brass tacks in terms of what you as a business owner can do to really make sure that A, you have, digital strategy in place, B, you're maximizing that, digital strategy, and then C, going forward for 2021, as stuff does begin to open up, there's probably going to be a hybrid approach that many companies will take, of starting to re-engage and put into the mix some of those more traditional avenues of ways people can connect with you, event marketing, trade shows, things like that. But I think there's forever a place now on a
You're
full
digital.
digital buyer journey,
Absolutely.
because consumers this last year, we've kind of been almost spoiled with not ever having to engage with folks on a
Yeah.
on a on a real basis. So
And I don't think
um
that changes. I think that people
right,
will have forever shifted a lot of their patterns and a lot of their buying habits to online, and that's not going to go away. And even if you do go back,
right,
trade shows, you should do what
if
you
they're going to
always
be different.
exactly. They're going to be different and integrate that digital because that's really where you're going to be able to maintain and keep those connections that you make with people.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, just as kind of some of our final tips would be is make sure you've got your technology and tools in place, whatever that, if you're using an all-in-one tool, if you're using a cobblestone approach of tools, make sure that it works for you and that it's efficient for you and your team. Make sure that you're communicating with your clients, your employees, your prospects. Make sure that you're active on social channels. Make sure that your website is optimized for people to reach out to you at various stages of the buyer's journey. That's only going to offer a seamless kind of customer experience and user experience. And then also just make sure that your product is aligned and adaptable, because there will be changes again. This is not the end. This is
Undoubtedly.
not the end of
Constant,
these
constant.
changes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
And,
just making sure that you're always thinking about, okay, how can I best serve, but also best communicate with
yeah.
folks.
And I would add to that that you have this strategy set up. Don't let this be ad hoc. Don't let this be something that you just kind of cobble together. Sit down, take the time to write out for the next 3 months and the next 6 months, specifically what you're going to be doing, how you want to post, what emails you want to set out, and what tech deck changes you need to make to your website because it's so easy to get so focused on your day-to-day problems and you need to set it up in a way that's going to be easy for you to follow or your employees to follow or something so that you make sure that this actually keeps going.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Fantastic.
yeah, that's all I had. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. Jen, any final words or?
I would say just keep killing it and be productive, have fun with what you're doing,
Yep.
and keep
Excellent.
keep being open to adaptation because that's again that's not going away anytime soon.
Yep, exactly. And obviously, if you guys need help or have questions on implementing a digital strategy or fine tuning your digital strategy, we're here to help. You can reach us at girlfriendstalkmarketing.com, Team Media Consulting, or Excellent Writers. So we're here as a resource. We're all in it together. Everything is always changing. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
So long.
Bye.